once you get activated and you have this like, this is what I'm gonna do. And you apply the work ethic, because I was applying my parents' work ethic. I was activated. I felt like this was like, nothing was gonna stop me. Man, I surprised myself. You know, there was times I used to walk around the campus like, man, they're gonna find out. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. You know what I mean? It was almost like this imposter syndrome. Like,
Sure.
Welcome to the Same Business, Different Day podcast, a platform dedicated to exploring the journeys, challenges, and triumphs of individuals who embody the essence of inspiration and success. I'm Zeke Corley, your host, and today I have the pleasure of introducing our esteemed guest co-host, Natasha Mills.
Yeah, it's me.
Yes. One of the brilliant minds behind the popular and entertaining Odd Pairing podcast.
Emphasis on brilliant.
Brilliant and entertaining. But really, congratulations on finishing season 2.
Yeah, thanks.
Wrapping that up. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations. So today we are blessed with the opportunity to converse with the extraordinary Jimmy Figueroa. Jimmy's dedication and compassion radiate through everything he does. We will take a journey through Jimmy's life and the path that led him to epitomize resilience, empathy, and unwavering determination. Prepare yourselves, listeners, for a heartfelt conversation that will touch and move you. We got Jimmy Figueroa in the house today.
First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. It's a great opportunity, and I'm just very thankful for you giving me the space.
No, man, easy. Like I was telling Natasha earlier, I met you a few weeks ago over at this chamber mixer, and your name preceded you, man. And that's not necessarily always common, you know. In networking events, people are all trying to do for themselves and see who they can meet and, you know, what kind of business they can get done. But instead, somebody just came to me and just said, hey, you need to meet Jimmy. You know, and that's pretty awesome, man. Now, where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in Oceanside.
Okay.
So Tri-City Hospital.
Okay.
Yeah, 80s baby.
Yeah.
Both of my parents immigrated from Mexico to San Diego County, and they actually met in Solana Beach. Back then, it was you had a lot of Mexican immigrants living in Solana Beach along the coast. That's where the jobs were.
Okay.
So my dad was like 17 when he came by himself, and then he met some of my uncles some of my mom's brothers, and through them he was introduced to my mom, and my mom had also come to the States, and that's where they met. My family lived like in Solana Beach and Sanitas before I was born, but as they started gentrifying like the coast, folks started moving towards the 78, and my parents moved to Oceanside right before I was born. And so I lived in Oceanside the majority of my life.
So it wasn't just your parents here, there were their siblings as well?
Yeah. So my entire family on my mom's side. My dad was an orphan. Okay. And so he has a half sister that's lived in TJ the majority of my life. And then he has a brother who still lives in their hometown of Guanajuato, where they're from in Mexico. Okay. But my mom's entire family came to North County, the majority of them. So I have, like, I kid you not, like over 100 relatives in North County.
What?
Yeah, easily.
Wow.
A lot in Oceanside, in the Tri-City area, but all throughout North County. Okay. And so, yeah, it's just like, but everyone started in Solana Beach.
Yeah. So.
And Solana Beach and Sanitas and Carlsbad. And then, like I said, as the development started taking place there, folks, they got priced out. They started coming out here, Oceanside Business, San Marcos, Escondido.
How would you compare the two? Like let's say Solana Beach versus Oceanside.
I mean, I wasn't there. Like you still see, like if you go to Eden Gardens, La Colonia, they still have a space in that community where you can see the history and the culture that was once rich there. But it's all developed now. So, Oceanside has always been home. And so for me, growing up in the city of Oceanside, coming from parents who came from Mexico, but also, going to school with kids that were first generation Samoan American, first generation Guamanian American, first generation Filipino. And then we had a strong African-American population in Oceanside when I was coming up, from everyone coming from the military from the South. So having that melting pot, you know, in my neighborhood, it was extremely diverse.
And that's so important, man. It's a good place to, you know, for an upbringing. You know, we are working on a podcast with Kumara Escasega and Christy Hawthorne of the Oceanside Historical Society, working on their podcast. And I mean, she's just such a wealth of knowledge about the history of Oceanside. But you were embedded in.
I was born and raised. And, you know, for me, it's like I had a lot of family members that when they came to North County, a lot of neighborhoods that they moved into were predominantly Mexican communities. And, you know, me growing up in the part of Tri-City that I grew up in Oceanside, it provided me such like a unique and rich childhood experience that set me up, really for a lot of the work that I do now. Because like I said, my neighborhood, it was a working class neighborhood where the majority of the folks there were like laborers, construction workers, plumbers, you know, but Samoans, Filipinos, blacks, whites, Mexicans, and you know, we're all playing football and basketball tag together.
You're learning about each other's cultures,
and how much we had in common.
Yes.
And so for me, I think that's what makes Oceanside so beautiful. It's just the diversity and what you get to learn from others. And, you know, it's kind of like this underdog mentality growing up from Oceanside. It's like people take a lot of pride in that. And I definitely take a lot of pride being from Oceanside.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Yeah. So, numerous siblings, or was it just
I have an older brother.
Okay.
And a younger sister. My older brother, you know, his experience, it was very similar because we're both males. We're 4 years apart. We had a lot of the same friends, but, you know, he was the first. And so like, I was sharing this with my daughters the other day that like, you know, your uncle didn't learn English until he was like in first, second grade, because at that time, most of my cousins were his age and they were all going through, you know, trying to understand the best that they could, the environment that they were in with having parents that only speak Spanish.
Yes.
And so, and then my parents only had an elementary school education because in Mexico, where they're from, you have to have some wealth to continue your education. And so my brother, you know, he's trying to navigate the space, but by the time I entered elementary school, I was already speaking English because all my cousins were speaking English. And so, you know, a lot of the things that I picked up in my childhood, my parents were working 6 a.m., 5 to 5 p.m. were from like my older brother and my older cousins and the older kids in the neighborhood. And then by the time my little sister, you know, she's 4 years younger than me, 8 years younger than my brother. My parents are a little bit more established, and then she has us to learn from. So so
considering, like you said, being around, growing up around older folks that were like laborers and so forth. What were your aspirations? What did you want to be when you grew up?
Man, it was hard because it was like coming from an immigrant family. My dad came here at the age of 17 by himself. My mom, you know, she was the youngest of 7, but they came here specifically to work. And, you know, they came from areas where it was extreme poverty, or at least from my perspective, it's extreme poverty. But for them, it's like, it is what it is. That's all they knew. Right? So they knew they were poor, but at the same time, it's like, I've been to where my mom's from, everyone's happy and content. Right. But to this day, there's still no roads. Everything's dirt. Like it's, you know, where when she was growing up, there wasn't like all of these essentials that are just common here. But, you know, when you're in it, like they're content. And so, but they came here with this mentality of like pursuing the American dream. And, you know, that they were working 2 jobs. But for me, like my parents' aspirations for my life was education.
Okay.
But I didn't know anyone yet in my life at that time that looked like me that had succeeded through education. And because this is where I was born, I didn't see it as the opportunity, and also I guess you can say like the meal ticket that my parents saw, because they didn't have the opportunity and they would always look at it like, you have this amazing opportunity, you need to take advantage of it. But I'm like, I don't know what that looks like because I don't know anyone that has taken advantage of it. So it's like, you don't know what you don't know. And so at a young age, I didn't really have like these career aspirations. I was living like day to day, trying to, you know, I was just hanging out in the neighborhood, and I played sports. And like a lot of minority kids, it's like you think that sports is going to be the one, it's like the only pathway to college. It's the only way that you're going to get out of here.
For illegal activities.
Right. And so like, that's what you know. And once like the grades aren't there and I can't play sports no more, well, then it was just like, all right, well, you know, you start venturing off and you have idle time. So that didn't come about until later. But one thing that I did pick from my parents in that community was everyone worked hard in that neighborhood.
Okay.
Everyone worked hard. The folks that I was around didn't have a lot, but their work ethic was just, and it was a different work ethic. It was a work ethic out of necessity.
Yeah.
It's like, we need to do this for you guys to, you know, live. And so, you know, I never saw my parents sit down when I was a kid. Like, you know, they went to work before I woke up. They're coming home in the afternoon. My dad kept his work boots on until the sun came down. Like he's outside, like working on the car, working on this, working on that. Like we didn't have money to pay for someone to fix stuff. So like I always asked my dad, like, how did you become so handy? He was like, man, like we didn't have money. Like I had no choice. And this is before YouTube, you know what I mean? And so it's like, I remember as a kid, even if he had to take the car to the mechanic because he didn't have the tools, he would, you know, go get like a 12-pack and go back and sit with the mechanic
and learn.
It's like, so I never have to pay for this again. Because at that time I was like, what's he doing?
Yeah.
But it was like, man, like this is what we got to do.
Yeah.
And so picking up that work ethic later on in life, it was like when I started to develop and aspire to have dreams, it was like, okay, I don't know necessarily how to do it, but I have seen what work ethic looks like. And I'm going to apply that to what I'm pursuing.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was, you know, that's something that I did get the opportunity to model and see, you know, through growing up with parents that, you know, were laborers and just had the drive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in your current life, you can marry them both, though, right?
Yeah.
You can have the work ethic
Absolutely.
and then bring the education into it. But like you said, though, the grades were tough at some point, couldn't play sports.
Right.
And so those early school years, did you graduate?
I didn't graduate from middle school. I was getting in trouble young. You know, my report cards and all of that is as early as like first grade. It's like I'm the kid with the desk by himself in the back.
Yeah.
Fighting, just getting in trouble, not doing homework, not engaged.
Wasn't out of anger or anything, was it?
No, it wasn't out of anger. It was kind of just like
apathetic.
I think that it was just, for me, I didn't feel, you know, having teachers that didn't look like me. And having teachers that sometimes they just didn't understand cultural norms. You get to a point where you're kind of just like, okay, this place ain't for me, you know? And so, cause I wasn't the only one. Like a certain group of kids that looked like me were all of us kind of just like, you felt like, and I was going to school during the early 90s where like, whenever our economy is not doing the best, a lot of blame gets put on the immigrants, right? So like I was going to school in elementary school during like when Proposition 187 was out and Governor Pete Wilson was like, there was a lot of just narratives out there against the immigrant population or even people of color when you were hearing stuff like monster predators and stuff like this, right? Like in the early 90s. And me like going to school and having teachers like support that stuff. It's like you kind of look at it and you're just like, okay, well, I don't feel like you're on my team, right? Or it's like, and so, but my parents were always big on like, it don't matter like what, you know, I need, like, this is an opportunity for you. My brother, you know, he's very like smart. And so for him, he felt the same way, but he's like, I'll knock this out. And let me just knock this out. Where I was like, nah, man, forget this. Like and my little sister was like, she never got into any type of trouble. She was just like, education is the way, you know, at a young age. I kind of was the middle child. And, I mean, I was 8 years old looking up to the 12-year-olds in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
You know, when I was 12, I was looking up to the 16-year-olds in the neighborhood. So I'm learning about life from a 12-year-old, from a 16-year-old. And so, I was getting in trouble as early as elementary school. By the time I got to middle school, I was still heavy into sports. And at that time, I really still thought sports was going to be a pathway. But man, I couldn't get a D to save my life. And so it was like, by the time I was in 7th grade, I already had a truancy officer, after school detention every day. If I get to school by 4th period, it's a good day. Like it was, you know, it was very much said at that time that it's like, I was trying to figure out how I can play sports and not do school. And so it just doesn't work out.
You was really living up to that middle child.
But at the same time, like, at that time in life, I still hadn't picked up any mentors in school or anything like that. The first person I ever connected with in a school setting was the security guard at my middle school. He was a Samoan. He's still there. Yeah, he's a community leader, and his name's Fai Pau Pau, and he had the lived experiences, and I'll never forget. He would always pull me to the side, and he was like, "Man, like you got potential. Like it doesn't matter what's going on here. I know, you know." Like, and he just didn't speak like this to me. He spoke to like everyone like this. It was just so much respect, but he truly cared. He didn't want anything from me other than like to see me not go down the wrong path. And that resonated huge with me, right? Because it was like that love and support. And I'll never forget, he would always share like, man, if you keep, this is where you're at now, but if you keep doing all this, this is what's going to happen next. This is going to happen after that. And he had the lived experiences. And later on, when I got to high school, when I was like, man, he's been right about everything. So if he continues to be right, like this is what's happening next, because all of these consequences that he's mentioned, they have literally aligned with the timeline that he had set.
Yeah.
Because he had seen it before.
Right.
And so that kind of hit me. Man, the stuff that he was sharing with me when I was 12, like he planted those seeds, and it was like I saw them so vividly when I was 17, and my surroundings had become what they had become. I was like, man, like, so, you know, for me, I guess it goes back to just like, you know, really paying attention to those key moments in life.
You know, and I love that story, and I love that he's still at that school.
Yeah.
Right? Because he's probably the best teacher at that
He's the
school.
most, like, the kids that were like me, he's one of the most impactful people that they've ever met.
Yeah.
You know?
Hi, I'm Rachel Beld, host of Velocity, the Vista Chamber podcast. Join me as I sit down with Vista's movers, shakers, and changemakers. Let's move Vista forward with Velocity.
This podcast is brought to you by YourInsurancePlace.com. Owning a business is hard work. You put your blood, sweat, and tears into it every single day. You need a partner who understands the ins and outs of insuring small to medium-sized businesses. For over 40 years, our California Property and Casualty Insurance Agency has insured businesses just like yours. We've seen it all, and we've learned a thing or two about what it takes to keep your business protected. That's why we offer free policy assessments. We'll take a look at your policy and let you know if there are any gaps in your coverage. Let us help you to protect what you've worked so hard to build. YourInsurancePlace.com.
What would you say is one piece of advice or foresight or something that he gave you that, I mean, I know you're into this work now, so I'm sure you've got some great nuggets to drop on people too, but we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But like one of those things that you could say to like a 12-year-old or something like that would catch their ear, that most of them would ignore, but something about you say it to this particular kid is going to catch him.
I don't think it was one thing. Like, I think it was just like, it was the consistency of the relationship more than anything. There was times I cussed him out, you know what I mean? And he continued to like show me love, and he was like, okay, man, you're mad, but that ain't at me. Like, and so the consistency of it made it so genuine. And I think that, man, when I got married, he was at my wedding. You know what I mean? Like, I invited him to it was like when I finally got my bachelor's degree, I made sure that I like wrote him a letter, like 15 years later. And it was like, man, this would have not happened without the love that you poured into me when I was 12. Even though I didn't listen and apply it at that time, like when I finally started making decisions in my life, those seeds that you planted many years later, they resonated with me. And this is probably one of the reasons I'm doing what I'm doing and the way that I've done it, because I always think about what he did for me. And I always tell folks, I know we'll probably get into it, but working in the community, it's like, man, you'll plant these seeds now, but you may not see them. I said the best thing we can do is plant the seeds and hopefully, they'll resonate before things get worse or before someone has to hit rock bottom. But if that's what happens, that's what happens. But like just going off of that experience has allowed me to give me patience and also the importance of consistency in the work that I do.
I say, that's brilliant, and it's amazing. it's kind of like, I can't think of it exactly. Which one is, it's like the listening and the hearing, right? Which one are they doing? You heard me, but you weren't listening, that kind of thing, right? That comes from, our community early on in life. And I think that an important lesson there is that, just because somebody doesn't act on what they heard right away doesn't mean that they didn't hear you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And for him to keep,
from a therapist standpoint, you know exactly what I mean.
Yeah, and for him to keep going, like to keep that consistency with you, spoke a lot about him understanding that.
Right.
Because somebody did it to him.
Right.
So for him to keep talking to you in that way, and then for you to go back all those years too and like write him that letter, that's why he's keep doing what he's doing now.
Right.
Because even though that letter is going to allow him, it just
validate.
It just keeps boosting him to just keep going.
Thousands of people he's touched, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like, but we have that relationship where it's just like, I always, go back to that, and so to this day, like my K through 12 experience wasn't the best. A lot of it was, me. A lot of it, I think it was also not having systems in place to harvest hope within students that were like me as well. So it was twofold, but like I've had two people in the K through 12 system that like really had an impact on my life. Before it was Faye, was a teacher, my 5th grade teacher. Her name was Miss Allen. Only teacher of color I ever had in elementary school, and I think all throughout K through 12. And I remember going from 4th grade to 5th grade at that time. And I heard they shared with me that most of the teachers didn't want me in their class. And she was like, no, I'll take them. And man, I was like student of the month that year. Like and a lot of it was just her believing in me.
Yep.
And me seeing a teacher of color and the way she talked to me, right? It was like something about that was like, I want to make her proud. Yeah. And I experienced that again with Faye. And for me, a lot of it goes back to like, how can we do that with the next generation? Because I used to think that like, okay, that was my experience. But then when I got to mentoring youth, many years later, I was hearing basically my story.
Same story
with them. And it's like, okay, this is a systemic versus like an individual one.
We all need it. We all need it.
Yeah.
We need the wisdom. We need the influences. We need the mentors. Yeah. And they come in so many different ways. Yeah. Some of them, people get it watching TV. We'll know where you get Dr. Huxtable. You know, but the what I would say is that another place people get it is in the job force. Did you have any early jobs, and was there anything lessons that you were learning there early on?
I think a couple sales jobs when I was like 18, 19, same thing. Folks kind of taking me under their wing and not necessarily thinking about that's, us, our profit margin at that specific location, but like really sitting down with me and like showing me like the art of a sale and the importance behind it and how to build the need. But doing it just based off of like, man, I see something in you and you can take this to wherever you go.
That's it.
Yeah, just being genuine. I think a lot of that resonates a lot deeper versus of having something attached to it. You know what I mean? But I think you can, in the workforce, I've had some amazing mentors along the way. And the best leaders that I've had, and I've had the opportunity to work alongside or for, really focused on development. And it was development for your career, not necessarily development to just help this one organization, right? And so, and then proud when an opportunity presented itself that maybe wasn't within the organization, but just, and I think you remember stuff like that. You remember stuff like that. And I always try to apply that to the teams that I work for. It's like, it doesn't have to be for here. Like, we're going to benefit just having you here, but how can I put you in a position to continue to develop your career?
It's the long play. I love it. So then eventually you did go off into higher education. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I ended up, by the end of my junior year, I had only like accumulated like 60 credits. Like you need 240 to graduate from California schools, at least at that time. And most of my credits came from like summer school or like night school, charter schools, like side stuff, right? And my mom was going to the Maricosta Community Learning Center in downtown Oceanside to learn English. And she's like, they got a GED program. Like, I think that you should just try it. And at that time I was kind of like, man, I'm done. But at the same time, that point in my life, I was like 17, 18. I had a lot of friends that were starting to, everything that Fahi had said was going to happen was starting to happen within my inner circle. And just thinking about all that was taking place, I said, well, what's the worst that can happen, right? So I went, and the community college is a different experience than being through the K through 12 system. You know, you're an adult there. It's like, if you don't do your homework, it's on you. You know what I mean? If you got to use your phone or go to the bathroom, go ahead, like, just go. Like, if, you know, and so, but if you care, they're going to go above and beyond to help you. And that was the first time I started seeing educators of color in that space who also had lived experiences.
Right.
And so that kind of was just like, oh, okay, like we do exist. Like, and so hearing their stories was inspiring to me, because I was now meeting people that had done it, like who had done it. And so I ended up getting my GED through the Community Learning Center, and then an adult high school diploma. So I got both. They kind of like, if they had a program where if you score certain points on your GED test, it'll give credits to an adult high school diploma. So I ended up getting both. And then, I enrolled I worked for a little bit, and then I enrolled in the main campus at the age of 20. And at that time, I really felt like I was, okay, this is it. Because most of my friends at this point, my closest friends, were in prison, or just different things had happened where it was like, now I'm like, my community is small, and I'm here free. And now I started seeing kind of like what my parents saw when they immigrated here. Like this is, I have an opportunity. This is a necessity. I need to do it. So the drive was different. But I also wanted at this point, like, you know, thinking retrospectively, like I wanted to provide opportunities for my family. I wanted to, like, you know, repay my mom for everything I had put her through. And then at the same time, I wanted to be able to create opportunities for my friends when they came home from prison. And so it was like, okay, how can I do that? I don't know. Well, I know that there's higher education that can maybe help me, you know, put myself in a position where I can do that. And that was the driving force. And when I got there, I took a placement test. And because I had missed so much school, I placed so low on the placement test. They pretty much, you know, had to be put in remedial math, remedial English. They were like, you're gonna have to take like 16 units just to get to college level courses. But at that time it was like, what's the alternative? And I was driven. I was like, I'll do whatever it takes. And man, I had to take those remedial math classes numerous times. Like I struggled through it, because trying to learn algebra at the age of like 21, 20, like, and there was no foundation there for it. But even like putting not sentences, but like writing a full on paper. I used to type, you know, we didn't have a computer in my house until I was like 18, 19. So like even being around like all of these like skills that I didn't accumulate when I was younger, here I was at the age of 20, like trying to like figure them out. But like, man, I got my first A in college, my second A, my third A. I was reading chapters. I would have to read, like, especially because you have to do your general ed. Like I'm taking geology, not understanding what I'm reading. So I'm reading the same chapter 3 times on a Saturday night, but determined to like, I'm gonna make this happen. Within 4 years, I ended up graduating from Maricosa with a 3.78 GPA, a full ride scholarship to UC Berkeley, UCLA, UC San Diego, UC Santa Barbara. And I ended up going to UC Berkeley. And it was just very much like once you get activated and you have this like, this is what I'm gonna do. And you apply the work ethic, because I was applying my parents' work ethic. I was activated. I felt like this was like, nothing was gonna stop me. Man, I surprised myself. You know, there was times I used to walk around the campus like, man, they're gonna find out. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. You know what I mean? It was almost like this imposter syndrome. Like, like, is this, man, this ain't right. Like, they're gonna figure me out. You know what I mean? Like
the kid you walk by had the same thing.
But at that time it was just like, and while I was at Maricosa, I started serving at a nonprofit called Encuentros Leadership, and the purpose of the organization was to decrease the dropout rate amongst Latino boys in North County and promote higher ed. And I got involved with the organization. They had a conference coming up, and I started getting involved with. I just wanted to set up chairs and tables and like whatever you guys need from me, I'll do. And one of my mentors at Maricosa, she was like, you know what, Jimmy, like, why don't you be the fundraiser coordinator for this event? And I was like, fundraiser coordinator, I'm just trying to like fold some shirts and like, I'll talk to some kids. Like, and she was like, no, I think you can. Mind you, I had like transferable skills that I had accumulated before graduating from high school, just like some of my lived experiences, but also having sales jobs throughout that time. I never saw myself like being involved in nonprofit from that space, but I ended up raising more money for that conference, and I thought I could more than they had in previous years, and got us some major sponsorships. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, like I might have something here.
You might have something.
And yeah. And so like that kind of just kicked off like my nonprofit career.
Let's do it. It's time for the reveal.
Yeah.
All right. We're excited to welcome a true hometown hero, Mr. Jimmy Figueroa. Jimmy returned to his community, creating a difference in the lives of countless women and families. As the executive director of Operation Hope North County, Jimmy Figueroa stands as a vanguard of compassion and support for those in need. At Operation Hope, their noble mission is to provide a safe haven and empower women and families with children to regain stability and independence. Through their comprehensive programs, individuals are not only afforded a secure living environment, but are also guided through risk mitigation strategies and equipped with essential job readiness, financial literacy skills, and much more. Today, we express our deepest gratitude to Jimmy Figueroa for his dedication and selfless service to the community. His organization's remarkable efforts have inspired hope, transformed lives, and rekindled a belief in the power of compassion and resilience. With his leadership, Operation Hope North County will continue to be a beacon of light, offering hope and support to those who need it most. Once again, the executive director of Operation Hope, welcome, Jimmy Figueroa.
Thank you.
We appreciate you, man. We really do appreciate you being here. Tell us more about Operation Hope. I want to dig into that a little bit.
Yeah, so Operation Hope is, as you mentioned, is a shelter for families with children and single women. We have the space at 859 East Vista Way. I always tell people, we're hidden in the back. We like to be hidden. We're right behind Barnacles. It's probably the cheapest gas station in Vista, but I always tell people like we're by Black Rock.
Okay.
Yeah, I always tell people we're by Black Rock Coffee. We're a 45-bed shelter. We have 12 individual rooms, so every family gets their own individual room. Some rooms are larger than others. Our largest room could fit a family of 7. Our smallest room could fit 2 individuals, and that's our single female room. That space used to be a Vista Community Clinic. And in 2012, we purchased the property and converted the old clinic into the shelter. Okay. Prior to that, we used to facilitate our shelter through a warehouse here on Orange Street off of North Santa Fe. And at that time, it was bunk beds separated by shower curtains, and it operated as a winter shelter. When we were there from 2003 to 2012, 2013. And then when we came over to the 859 location on East Vista Way, we remained a winter shelter into 2016. And then in 2016, we became a year-round, 365 days, 7 days a week shelter. And we've been operating like that ever since.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Hello, friends. I'm Joe Samo. I'm an attorney in San Diego, and I'm the host of Run It By My Lawyer. It's a great podcast where you will learn a lot about the law, and it is very entertaining, if I say so myself. And you could get it for free anywhere you get your podcasts, and you could follow us on Instagram at Run It By My Lawyer.
The Film Hub is the future of co-working in downtown Vista. Get energized in an inspiring work environment that is built for your success. With multiple membership options for workspace and private offices, you can become a part of our co-working community. The Film Hub makes it easier to produce the professional content your business needs. From video production, live streams, photo shoots, or in-person events, you can create all this and more in our audio and video facilities. Love your work and where you accomplish it. The Film Hub.
Now so you also got the food pantry there. You help the kids with homework. There's just so much that you guys are actually doing.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about what other arms of the organization happen other than shelter.
They've grown out of the need in the community, and you know, I think any impactful organization modifies its programs and services based on what the community and clientele are saying there are gaps, right? And what the need is. And so Operation Hope has done exactly that. This past year or these past couple of years, the number of youth that we're serving continues to increase. And so what I mean by that is that in order to be at our shelter, we're a shelter for families with children. So sometimes it's the single dad there. Sometimes it's grandparents who have custody. But the majority of our adults at the shelter are single moms. And the number of children that we continue to have each year has grown.
Yeah.
And so the more that I looked at our shelter services, we had a lot of things for our adults in the shelter, which is important because our goal is to get them back on their feet and, stable to be able to get back into housing. So you want to have parenting classes, financial literacy classes. You want to be able to teach them to budget correctly, right? And how to navigate the housing market. But it was like, what are we doing for the youth? Right. So we've really taken a step ahead to prioritize our youth programming. And as things have changed in our community as well, really focusing on emotional literacy, being trauma informed, be restorative in mind, because, when we think about the youth at the shelters having these experiences, we want to make sure that they're engaged and we continue to fill them with hope as we focus on their development.
Yeah.
The food pantry came about in 2020, right before the pandemic started. So the pantry started before the boutique started before the pandemic. And a lot of that was based off of our families graduating from the program, finding housing, but still being food insecure.
Yeah.
They got the money to pay for rent, but they're still struggling in other areas. And so I really, our team is amazing of building a rapport and establishing those relationships with our clients. And what would happen was our clients would graduate the program. Well, the case managers, they trust, the staff at the shelter, they trust. And so they would still come back and say, hey, is there any help that you can help me with X, Y, and Z? And based off of that, the pantry was created. And now 2 to 3 years later, the pantry is serving over 100 families a week.
Wow.
And a lot of it is our communities here in Vista, our families here in Vista.
Sure.
And it's our way to help prevent homelessness so that they don't need the shelter, right? And so we have one big pantry day a week, and that's open to the community. But then our pantry is available to our graduate families, 5 days a week. So they schedule an appointment and we make sure that we're able to assist them. But that came about because of the need in the community. As we see, economic instability continues to rise in our area. It's getting more and more expensive to live here, and wages haven't caught up with that. And so it's impacting everyone.
And it seems like you guys can see first the inflation, the shrinking inflation before we even heard about it, right?
And you see the displacement as well, because when you start seeing families, we serve a part of the homeless population a lot of people don't see. We're serving a lot of the families that haven't even disclosed to their employer, their kids' schools that they're homeless. These are families that have been displaced because they've been evicted or they can't afford the rent. Deposits have gone up along with the economy being hit. The deposits have been now, I think it's 2.5 times the rent. So if you're asking a family to deposit $7,000, a single mom making $15, $16 an hour, it's where's she going to come up with that money?
Exactly.
And so they go living in their cars, or they go living friend to friend. This is where we hear motel, friend to friend, sometimes motel. Then they're in their car. Well, there's no stability there. So when they come into the shelter, we're able to, one, provide shelter. Two, dinners are taken care of. We have a laundry room. All of that's taken care of.
Peace of mind is what you create.
Everything, right?
Yeah.
And then a safe space. And then you have staff there to help. And, we're going to help you find a job. We're going to help you, just like you said, get a peace of mind. And then we have the classes. And so, then we're able to help with childcare. We have so many different partners in the community. Because all that ties into homelessness. If you don't have childcare, well, how can this parent work?
How can I go? Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so it's like there's so many things to it. And yeah, we get to see it, but you know, we have families that come from Escondido, Oceanside, Vista, but what we're hearing is like it's getting more and more expensive to live here. And it's just like sometimes like I have a job, like I'm doing everything. And here I am in this situation.
Yeah.
Right? You know, it's tough. It's difficult, and it's our community. You know, this is our community, and we get to help our community.
Speaking of that, though, I know there's also like disproportionate numbers when it comes to, you know, people of color as well, right? And then I did notice on your website there was some focus about like equality and social justice and stuff like that. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, it's very important to us. The majority of, you know, the numbers back this up. The majority of the clients that we have are Black and brown single moms.
Okay.
And so as many Black and brown children are at our shelter. And so for us, it was very important that our staff reflected the community that we serve. And so when you look at our staff, you know, the demographics of our staff, we mirror that. And it was important for us also to have a staff that was, again, I keep mentioning this, but to be trauma informed, to understand that there's traumas with being homelessness. There's traumas for coming from a system impacted family. There's traumas of dealing with the justice system, and having a staff that also had the lived experiences. Like, what's your why? Yeah. Like, I know that, you know, we maybe have an available job. We know that the schedule may work for you because, of course, we're flexible. Yeah. But why? Why do you want to be here? Like, what's driving you to serve this specific community, right? And, you know, we have trainings with our staff constantly to mirror that, because we have families that we're bringing in that maybe have had, you know, some history of dealing with CPS, maybe in their own personal life, not with them as parents, but them as children. We have parents that have been in the foster system at one point, you know, so there's all these triggers that I think for us, we try to acknowledge, but also make sure that we cater our services to that. And that's very important to us, because like mentioning FI in, you know, in the beginning, it's like that consistency, and that lived experiences. Having that lived experience goes a long way when you're trying to provide hope to someone. Right. Because like if I have to first be consistent, establish a relationship, build that trust, then I can start providing the programs and the education. But that's the most important thing, is if you don't trust me, then it's like you're not going to acknowledge what I'm trying to help you with, you know. And so I think that's very key for any community-centered organization.
Right. And I mean, but you still are using the word community, which is so important. And so how do we bring together the rest of the community? How can the community help you with what you're doing, whether it's volunteering, whether it's donating, whether it's, you know, time, money, food? What kind of help can we provide to you, or our listenership also provide to you, and how do they contact?
Yeah, there's so many different aspects of it because of the different arms of services that we offer. Right. And we're also, you know, we have to privately raise about 75% of our budget. 25% of it we get from local government, but the rest of it we have to privately raise. And so, you know, there's so many different ways that we can, you know, get support, but, you know, volunteering at the food pantry, volunteering with our youth program, even volunteering if you're someone that has unique skills in maintenance, plumbing, landscaping. We can use that, because a lot of that work at the shelter property comes through volunteers. And we have, through the chamber, we've met some amazing organizations who have provided a service in kind to us, where it's like we have a drainage company that we work with, Eva Drains. I spoke at a chamber event one time, and he came up to me and he said, look, I don't have like money to give. I don't even have a lot of time because I run a small business, but if you guys ever run into any drainage issues, call me. He's like, I grew up in a shelter. And he's like, if there's anything that I can do to help, that's how I can use like what I have. Yeah. And we do, you know, like sometimes you do when you own a property, it's like you're going to run into things like that. We also have a meal program, and I think the meal program is a very unique way to get connected to the work, and also be able to you know, get a connection also to the, you know, community that we're serving. We provide dinners for our families every night, 365 dinners we provide. To provide a dinner usually costs about $250 to provide a dinner for everyone at the shelter. Okay. And a lot of times those dinners are provided by civic groups, you know, Rotary clubs, Kiwanis clubs, faith-based organizations, local businesses. But, you know, to organize 365 dinners a night for, the entire year is difficult. And so, that's a big help to us. But I think we have so many different services that it's more like what aligns with your passion.
Yeah.
And how can we connect you to that? Because when it comes to like IT or anything, like if you have a specific skill, we can use it.
So, and then also, what about the classes? Who's teaching the classes, and do you have other folks come in and provide education?
We do. We get folks from the community that will provide specific classes. We have recurring classes that take place every week. So Chase Bank, we partner with them. They have a curriculum really centered on developing financial literacy at the heart. So it's not like this curriculum and you end up with checking and savings at the end. No, it's really based off of, it's a 12 module program. And I believe out of the 12 modules, we utilize, I think like 9 of them that really apply to the community that we're serving. And then we also utilize a parenting curriculum. It's an evidence-based curriculum that a lot of the local school districts use. And that one we teach internally. Our staff has been trained to teach it. But then we have housing navigators that come in and like, hey, this is the updates on the current rental housing market, and this is how we can help you. We've had other folks come in and do restorative circles with our parents. We've had dog therapy. We've had different classes in financial literacy or self-esteem classes taught. We've partnered with Tri-City Hospital, and they come and do some like workforce readiness, like updates on like the current job market, but they created specifically for the clientele that that we're serving. And so it's just really about being client focused and knowing who your audience is. Obviously, like you always need to know who your audience is.
Right.
But, our residents, they're there and they appreciate it.
I appreciate it. And I appreciate you being here, really, Jimmy.
I love the domino effect work you guys are doing, because a lot of places don't do that. You guys are literally hitting the dominoes.
Well, I think a lot of it is just as an organization being attentive to what your clients are telling you that they need, and then also having to modify based on society and the economy. It's like, okay, like you have to be willing to modify and pivot. What worked 5 years ago, may not work or may not be needed today.
Yes.
And what's needed today may not be needed 5 years from now. So just always being attentive, understanding like our main audience is our clients. And so based on what they're telling us that they need, that's what we're going to provide. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. We got to shout out Fai.
Yeah, Fai Pao Pao. He's at Oceanside High School now. He's at Oceanside. Yeah.
We got to shout out Miss Allen.
Miss Allen.
And because without them, maybe we might not be sitting here next to you in this capacity, having this conversation. I'm really happy for you, man.
Yeah.
And everything that you got going on. OperationHopeShelter.org, right?
No, it's Operation Hope. Yeah, OperationHopeShelter.org, and it's Operation Hope North County. There is another. So Operation Hope North County is our shelter located at 859 East Vista Way.
Yeah. We absolutely appreciate you being here. We know you're short on time, but we squeeze it all in. We made sure that we got that information out here because it was important. It was an important conversation to have. I appreciate you being here. At Odd Pairing Pod.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
We just finished season 2. And go like, subscribe, comment, give us feedback. We love that.
Love it. Love it. At Same Biz Pod, SAMEBIZPOD, at A Different Day Radio. It's the same business, different day. Once again, thanking Jimmy Figueroa. We'll talk to you next time. Peace.